This is the Uniform Show where we review what's happening in the three major sports: NBA, MLB, NFL. Of the three sports, there's more to say in the NFL than any of the others, and it's football season now. We're just in the first few games, and there's a lot to look at. We've got NBA season just underway, and we have Major League Baseball playoffs.
A lot of new things have come about. A lot of tradition, but a lot of new things. So there's a lot to note and comment on.
Yeah, for us, we know you have the ability to look ahead and see what teams are wearing ahead of time. We are not involved in spoilers. We see what the teams are wearing just as we grew up watching sports. Before you had access to this information, when you see them when the game starts, or you see in football halftime, see the halftime highlights and what the teams have chosen to wear. So let's get into this, and we're going to go sport by sport. And the first is, we can call it old business, the NBA Finals from last year, which was one of the great uniform matchups we could have between the Warriors and the Celtics.
Color, contrast, tradition, so many nice things about this matchup that made it ideal from a uniform standpoint beyond just the two teams matching up, making for a good finals contest. What I didn't expect was that both teams would wear their traditional white at home, color on the road option throughout the entire finals. The Warriors did wear their alternate black on the road, but still that traditional format of white at home and color on the road was intact the whole entire series. And I myself did not look up what happened, why that happened, but you have to think that some rule was put in place, something was laid down to keep that much consistency in place and to be that traditional through the entire series. Maybe it was the 75th anniversary. It was great to see the finals restored to order, at least from our standpoint, and having white at home and color on the road. Great.
I'll get my complaint out of the way. There was more black than I would have liked to have seen in this series, but when they got it right, they got it right. As you can see here, the Warriors starting off this series with white at home, Celtics wearing their classic road green. And then I didn't think we were going to get the best matchup we could in Boston. But in the final game, the game 6, we had the Celtics wearing white, and finally the Warriors wore blue, which is their strongest uniform. I was very pleased to see that. What are you going to have that's better than Celtics Warriors? I mean, it all comes down to opinions. Celtics Lakers. We have the three best uniform sets there: the Lakers, Celtics, and Warriors. If the Warriors or Lakers facing the Celtics, that's as good as you could possibly ask for the finals.
Right. Contrasting colors and great structural design for both sides, and only the Lakers could be more superior to the Warriors, but these are our top teams, and they showed off their best options for the final game. I also did not expect that the Warriors were going to go back to the blue. Hoped, but after winning such significant games with the black, figured they would just keep going with that. And again, like you said, we didn't look ahead, even though the whole schedule was posted. So it was a nice traditional surprise for us to be welcomed with the matchup for the first time at the beginning of every game. For it to be a surprise and for it to be a good surprise.
Yeah, I was really hoping that was the last time the Warriors got in against the Cavs, that it was going to be the Celtics instead of the Cavs. Just to see a different team in there. I mean, having in any sport, think about that. 4 straight championships, in this case finals, with the same opponent. And some things changed. Really, the Cavs were the ones that changed throughout those 4 finals. I was hoping for the Celtics. It didn't happen, but I was really pleased that it happened this past season, that you had the Warriors, and they have just, again, one of the greatest uniforms in the league. The blue-yellow combination. That's yellow, not gold, even though I know it's called Golden State. That's yellow.
Right.
Great contrast, especially with the road blue, and then the Celtics, not as flashy, I would say a flawless uniform design with white and green.
Right.
So let's move on now, because now this new season is upon us, to opening night, where you have the Warriors hosting the Lakers. And I'll say what I thought was going to happen was, I thought the Warriors were going to wear the white and the Lakers were going to wear yellow, what would be considered their usual home uniform. We didn't get that.
Lakers wore purple instead. I was really excited when I first saw them in their warm-up gear, but when they took it off and came out on the court with their actual jerseys, I was disappointed because they were not the traditional purple, but the modernized version with the black numbers and side paneling and piping, and just nice, but falls pretty far short of the traditional purple the Lakers have.
Yeah, I was very disappointed. I was assuming we were going to see the yellow, even though that's what we would expect for the Lakers to wear at home. They've made their changes to the traditional purple uniform. They added that thick black piping we talked about in our full NBA uniform review. But the rest of the jersey is intact other than that. This is black for the sake of black.
Yeah.
And why do they feel they have to add black to the numbers? And it's one of the best road uniforms. The regular standard purple in the NBA. The Warriors got it right. The Lakers got it wrong. And the team with the right uniforms won.
Yeah.
As they should be. That's how it always should be in the world of uniforms, when you have such a quality gap here between the Warriors and the Lakers. And when do you say that about the Lakers? we rank the Lakers number one when they wear what they should.
Right.
Next up is Major League Baseball. We know about Albert Pujols and hitting his 700th career home run, and he's on the way out. He is out now that the Cardinals have been eliminated, and he's retiring. And watching Pujols come back to the Cardinals, it was cool seeing him in that uniform again, and I felt like he should have never left, and his career has been all wrong. It's been all down since leaving St. Louis. There's one thing that wasn't right about this.
Right. Albert Pujols always looks sleek with regular length pants and no socks showing and cleats that were solid in color except for maybe a logo. And in this case, he had baggy pants pulled up to show the new, more modern sock and these two-tone cleats. If only he would have gone out the way he came in, or at least left St. Louis the first time, it would have been a lot better.
When we grew up watching baseball, no one with the Cardinals wore high socks. And for a good reason, no one did, because these were like wearing clown socks. I remember when Ricky and Keel came up to the majors with the Cardinals, not the batter, but the pitcher, Ricky and Keel. And he's the first player I can remember wearing high socks. And this was also the day and age where you didn't get to watch every game. You didn't have highlights on demand. So maybe I missed someone. Maybe we missed someone at some point who did. But he's the first one I remember. And it was not a pretty picture. And Keel and I sat there saying, oh, so that's why no Cardinals players wore the high socks, because that's what they look like. And then now what you have players flaunting these and showing them off. And then someone such as Pujols. It's just like, he needs the attention, really? Albert Pujols? Now let's look at the playoffs specifically. This was a positive from what we've seen so far. Phillies and Cardinals, when they get it right, just an excellent uniform matchup here. This was from the first game of the wild card playoffs, wild card round now, which is ridiculous, and I refuse to accept it or get used to it. But this was the Cardinals hosting the Phillies, two red teams, but they have different shades of red, and two traditional uniforms that if we were to rank the MLB uniforms, they're right up at their top. I really appreciate these.
Yeah, and this was probably one of the best matchups in the entire playoffs this year. We can say that already, even though we are currently in the CS rounds. You don't have to worry about either team, for the most part, wearing any alternates that are wacky. And if they do wear an alternate, it won't be too often. In the Cardinals' case, they never do. The Phillies, possibly they could wear red on the road, and possibly their blue turn back at home on a Saturday. But overall, they are not deviating too much from their clean traditional look, and this was just a great series to see, and was a bit forgetting about what a great matchup it would have been because we were not paying as close attention to baseball this year. But it's nice to see two teams that don't use the playoffs as an opportunity to dress their worst, like so many teams do.
No alternates. Home for the Cardinals, it should be. Road for the Phillies, it should be. And in daylight. It's
Yeah.
great seeing these in the sunlight there as baseball is intended to be played. And I already know, too, because at this point, the Phillies eliminated the Cardinals. This was from the first game, but Phillies have moved on. And the best possible uniform matchup you could have in baseball that's left would be the Phillies and the Yankees. And with all due respect, the Yankees, their uniform's not as good as the Cardinals.
Right.
And there's something else that I caught in this game that I couldn't ignore, and it's a particular player that I'm not the biggest fan of, and it's Bryce Harper. So Bryce Harper's there on the third base line, and he's got green shoes on.
Right. Green shoes, and he's got the super tight pants now, and the black sleeve on his left arm. There's been a lot of flexibility in baseball uniforms, especially with the cleats, and this is just a real exaggeration of that opportunity. I do like that pants are getting a little less baggy, but now it's going too far in the other direction to be skin tight, which isn't good either. But just a lot of uniform uncoordination here, and you know even more about what's going on underneath the helmet, shall we say.
Yes, thank you, because we could just go on a rant about shoes for an hour. We could just talk about Major League Baseball and other sports too, but Major League Baseball, especially the most traditional sport, abandoning it. Team color shoes, because that's apparently what was wrong with the game. The game was not fun, and it was not pleasing to the eye for viewers, especially on TV, because you couldn't wear any color shoe you wanted to. It was holding back fans from enjoying the game. Well, the reason why he's wearing these green shoes is because it's the Philly Fanatic green. And underneath his helmet, when seeing him in the dugout, he's got this headband bandana with the Philly Fanatic. But the thing about it is that's the team mascot, but the team mascot's actually wearing the team colors, the Philly Fanatic. So he actually wears he or whatever it is, the Philly Fanatic, wears a full Phillies home uniform, or at least the uniform jersey, which looks very good. But that, no, the can we call it the skin color, or the whatever the color is, the Philly Fanatic itself is green. But that's not actually the team uniform. That's not the team color, but that's apparently the reason why he can wear green, and that's the excuse. But it doesn't fly with me that he's wearing this. Can we get back to wearing team color shoes?
Right. And for me, I don't like having a mascot or any extra imagery on the cleats in any form, but at least they could have been red cleats with the Philly Fanatic in color on those red cleats with white laces, not blue. Same with the bandana, red with the Philly Fanatic in its green color. at the least.
Yeah, and of all people, does Bryce Harper need to grab our attention? No, he's one of the last players who needs to grab our attention. You would think his play on the field would be enough, but no, he has to resort to something like this. Now we've come to the NFL, and that's where most of the show is going to be at. Have the first several weeks of the season under our belt. We haven't heard anyone talk about this change with the team that we're told is the most important team in the sport. Everything revolves around them. It's the Dallas Cowboys.
And what we've noticed is that the helmet color seems to have become this pale pearl colored version of silver, unlike what it has been, more gray silver for so long. We haven't seen anybody else bring it up or mention it, but it was very obvious from the first game this year, playing under the Dallas lights.
Yeah, the week one game against the Buccaneers in Dallas, because what other way can you start a season off than Sunday night football in Dallas? But what did I enjoy about it? A Cowboys loss. And we'll stick it to the Cowboys, and I'll stick it to the Cowboys anytime we can, whether we're talking about the teams on the field and the play on the field, or it's a uniform review. But getting back to the helmets, I cannot believe that anyone would ever experiment with the Cowboys helmet, because one thing that you can count on with the Cowboys is they're not going to mess with the uniform. And of all things, a helmet.
Right, it seems from all the games we've seen them in, it's a different shade. Maybe we're wrong, but we've watched the Cowboys long enough that we can tell the difference, and it's noticeable, and it's even more confusing from the standpoint that they have now two alternate versions of their helmet in white this year. You would think for sure they would want to keep silver with the gray shade more definitive for their standard uniform set.
It's almost like a semi-matte to me. It's not that they've gone all the way. And of all people, too, I have to say Ezekiel Elliott, his choice of equipment, especially the helmets, it was bad before, but look how bad. And can anyone honestly tell you that that looks good?
Right. And getting to the new Axiom helmet this year, which he is converted to from the Diamond, which we like to call the push button helmet. This is just now a exaggerated version of it. The button is still there, as we like to call it, but now you got these super exaggerated vents and the slits on the side, which greatly diminish and crowd team logos, making it hard to even pick them out or focus on them cleanly. And the Cowboys are a great example of that. They're able to fit the star inside that open space, but it's getting very small and cluttered now. And then one of the bigger, if not the biggest features, is the removal of the bar at the top, which we say makes it look like a motorcycle helmet, especially when you have the visor like he does in this almost totally blacked out version of a visor. On top of that, the face mask just looks plastic. So we're calling this the push button motorcycle helmet, plastic helmet. 3 different type of descriptions you could use for it. But it just looks exaggerated. It looks plastic. It doesn't look like a football helmet, and it just gets chunkier and more full of holes, and it's just getting more and more warped with each iteration. And we never thought that we would look back at the diamond original push button, we called it, and say that now is a good looking helmet, but we are starting to say that as more and more of these Axiom helmets are showing up. And with the one shell rule lifted, it is now coming about week by week that we're seeing more and more players switching to it.
And next up is George Kittle, and the 49ers they have a lot of bad helmets. This one I really have a problem with because Nick Bosa has a very similar helmet, and the reason he changed is because he had a concussion in the playoffs last year. This one, I say you cannot defend because George Kittle's injury was below the waist. It was either a groin or a hamstring. And because of that, you have to change to a special, what's supposed to be special concussion helmet. I know he plays a very physical style of football compared to a lot of tight ends. Like, I'll use a couple examples. Travis Kelce, he's called a tight end. He's really a receiver. Kyle Pitts, the top draft pick from last year, he's just a big receiver. George Kittle is a legitimate tight end who could have played in the 70s. He could have played in the 80s in that tough, physical style football. He can block, he can receive, he can do everything. But what I can't get over is why he changed his helmet. Of all the players, he didn't have a concussion, and fortunately we're seeing more and more of these helmets.
Yeah, and this is another example of the one shell rule being lifted, and even before it was lifted last year, we saw players somehow changing to new helmets. We assume in the name of safety, and because of safety, they allowed the rule to be broken. This is another example, and as each week has gone by, we've seen one, maybe if not two more 49ers players converting to this helmet. And maybe it's because Kittle is playing more on the line and blocking more. He decided to go with this. But like you said, it's not that he had a head injury this year, but he came back from a lower body injury and decided to have this helmet.
And that's what upsets me. You see the Cowboys when we're looking at Ezekiel Elliott. Here you see George Kittle, and these are the good helmets. It's one thing when you're going to ruin the look of one of those alternate helmets that we reviewed, with so many just awful helmets out there. It's hard to watch the Cowboys and 49ers helmets look like this.
Yeah, this helmet it has the, as I call them, dip and dot vents on the sides, and that was bad enough. But then when they started adding this trench model with this, I don't know what you want to call it, T-bar on the front, that is what really makes it stand out as chunky. And the logo decal, as you can see this picture here, is not staying on. It can't even fit on. It's too big, it's chunky, and the only thing about this helmet that is redeemable is that the back at the back that we can't see in this picture, but that is round and smooth, unlike the Diamond and Axiom. But other than that, we can only hope that he goes back to the Diamond helmet that you had before.
Then we have the running back in Kansas City, who I say Edwards-Helaire has one of the best jobs in the NFL, because when you're the running back in Kansas City, no one's paying attention to you. They got their eyes on Patrick Mahomes and where he's going to throw the ball. So of all running backs, this guy is not taking a lot of head-on direct hits.
And he's one of the first ones we noticed this year to wear the new Axiom helmet, and it was very noticeable because of the Chiefs' white face mask and the lack of the bar at the top. It really stands out. It doesn't match the rest of the team's helmets. For the most part, are the traditional diamond helmet or other models. You have the vents and slits that are making it difficult to fit the Chiefs logo on the side. The face mask just looks really thick and plasticky, and as has been pointed out, he actually uses tape to mimic the bars along the sides of his eyes for familiarity and direction, because they aren't there anymore. It makes you wonder why he didn't just stay with the diamond model he had before and keep it in the good visibility range and comfort zone.
Yeah, I don't have really anything to add to that. It's just another classic helmet that is ruined. It's ruined by these new helmets. See the Patriot highlights almost every week, some point, and there's one player you just can't miss on the field, and it's Judon here on the defense. Got a couple of issues here. One is the number. Why don't we deal with that first?
Ever since last year, when the number rules were changed, we've been annoyed by essentially lots of other position players wearing numbers that are traditionally for quarterbacks and kickers. And even Tom Brady himself made a comment about that. And it gets to the point that in certain cases we don't know what position certain players are.
Right.
So there was
it's like we've lost all order in the NFL.
Right.
And everything I personally have heard is positive about this, because this was another one of those things that made the NFL the no fun league. Is you can't be like college and you can't wear whatever number you want. It was like in the old days when Reggie Bush was going to wear, he wanted to wear, I believe, a single digit number, but couldn't.
Right.
College players in the past, when they entered the NFL, wanted to wear single digit numbers, and the NFL would not allow them. Well, starting last year, of course, that all changed. And yes, I feel like we've lost all order in the sport, and I sure got a real problem with it. There's got to be some kind of restrictions, and they were supposed to stick to them, and the NFL just said, forget about it. To the wind. It's gone.
Right. The only exceptions really are offensive linemen and defensive linemen, but then you have these swing position players on defensive ends, linebacker, the switch between the two that have been given exceptions. And one of the first was Judon, number 9, the Patriots that we noticed. And that is frustrating enough for us, but then also the red sleeves, which is definitely an accent, a far third, except for the bars on the shoulders in this revised version of the Patriots uniform, which is only a few years old. But still, it's a far away third color on both the jersey and the pants. And this is not the early 1990s and backwards Patriots where it was white and red primarily. This is the present, and it's too much red.
But the red sleeves, I have to say, bothers me even more because no one else, to my knowledge, is doing this with a blue team, but blue is your primary color. And he does this at home with the blue. He does it on the road with the white. And again, it's one of those things. It's nothing but, don't tell me it's nothing more than attention grab. And you know what? It works. Sadly, it works because I always know exactly where he is on the field, whether he's making a play or not. And he is a good player. But we'll tell you when they should wear this. This is when it's appropriate with the turnback, and that is a real turnback uniform there. We talked about the helmets. It was really nice seeing that whole uniform.
Right. This was great to see, and this is exactly what I was talking about. This is when the red sleeves are perfectly acceptable and in good taste, and I'm almost surprised that he didn't choose the blue sleeves, the reverse, to stand out in this case. But I'm glad he has the red. They looked great in this game. It was a sunny day in New England. It was a morning game. Just really highlighted this great uniform choice. I thought this would have been under darkness for a primetime game, but wow, it really was a nice treat to see it in the morning.
Now, we could fill a whole show with the Washington Commanders, and we did our mini review of the uniforms that were revealed, that being the home, road, and alternate for the Commanders. You can see all three here. The white road on the left, in the center, the home, and the road on the right. And I have to say, we at the time said it was the worst uniform set in the NFL. It was worse than the Jets. It was even worse than the Falcons. I still think they're bad. They are really bad. But each set that we've seen here to this point is better than the version that they had when they first displayed, because the road was white on white, the home was color on color, and then the black alternate didn't have anything on the sides. Now they put numbers on there.
Yeah, why they chose to represent themselves in the unveiling of the new uniforms the way they did, they must have realized that those weren't the best combinations, because having all white on white and then all burgundy on burgundy looked awful and amateurish, which so many teams do go that route anyway. But coming out here in the beginning of the season, we have to update our stance a little bit and give them a little more credit for choosing better choices. And then with the black, alternate uniform actually having something on the helmet, the numbers, not just empty black space.
Yeah, last week when the Commanders were facing the Bears, they decided to wear the white on white on the road.
Right.
That has to be said. It took them a while to get to that, and when you see at least what they have with the white on the burgundy, it's a whole lot better. I don't know why you choose to go white on white after wearing those. The best of the three would be, in my opinion, that home one. It's close, the home, and I just think the socks, just having more normal looking socks there, that would be my choice as the best of the three. And then the interesting choice of wearing the black on black in Dallas, non-primetime game. We always say not a place with the greatest lighting.
Right.
All I think is that, considering it's the Cowboys and the absurd amount of attention that the Cowboys get, they said to themselves, well, we'll get the most eyes on us against the Cowboys as we will at any time.
Right. That's the only sense we can make out of that.
And I don't know if that's really true or not when you have Monday night or Thursday night football and you're the only team. But if you're just taking a regular Sunday, certainly with the Cowboys. But what a contrast it was when you see the Cowboys. We've had our complaints about the Cowboys. We brought up the helmets already. It's a minor thing, but you see that Cowboys uniform. And then on the other side of the ball, you have this. And there's still no excuse for the W being in the front of the helmet. I can't ever give them a pass on that.
Right. Just trying to be different, and why you would choose to wear it against the Cowboys, other than, like you said, knowing that people are watching that uniform set. It would have been nice to see the more traditional burgundy jersey, white pants combination, like in the middle picture there.
Going a little bit of a different direction here. Since the Buccaneers have had Tom Brady as their quarterback, we see the Buccaneers more than we ever seen them since their last Super Bowl, the 2002 team with Gruden and Sapp, those Buccaneers. One thing that caught my eye that was very unattractive was the cheerleaders, and that doesn't usually go together, unattractive cheerleaders. But these cheerleader uniforms, okay, it's one thing to wear pants, but to have this pattern, I mean, it's almost like a banner pattern for pants, and not to have solid pants, and not to mention the shoes too. I say the uniform decline is obvious on the field with teams, but now it's even hit the cheerleaders across the league, especially in the shoe department. I chose these cheerleaders because I think they're the worst in the league by far.
Yeah, we noticed this when we were watching a recent Buccaneers home game. I believe it was the Chiefs.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think these were introduced maybe even a year or two ago. But I've already seen more than I would have liked to this season of these.
But yeah, it's more like, present one is more of a workout type outfit, and just there's so much alternating element there. The logo in the middle is good, but especially down the pants, just the inconsistency, the logo, the stripe, the wording, it doesn't fit. It cuts off different shades of red and almost orange shade, and then just the sneakers. It's just a real mess compared to the old one.
And and let me say this, because I was trying to go back and see what they had over years, and what we have here is the old would have been even a departure from tradition, because almost around the whole league, the traditional cheerleader uniform always had boots. That was always the way it was for years and years and years. And I'm not a fan really of the, basketball shoes, let's call them, workout shoes that they use. But what a difference, though. I mean, that is clearly superior to what they're wearing now. And I think the skirt is nice. I mean, it has the logo right there. And it's just again, we're focusing on the players on the field, but if you're out there, you are opening yourself up for evaluation and critique, and that's not the best way to represent your team, putting cheerleaders out there like that. And we were even watching, it was the 49ers Panthers game, and this was another thing that caught my eye, because this goes for sports, this goes for players and design altogether. You can look great, but if you wear the wrong pair of shoes, it can ruin everything.
Right.
And these Panthers cheerleaders, they had nice, like fairly traditional uniforms, and then they were wearing like Converse shoes. And it was just like, where did that come from? Can I think of something that clashes with what they're wearing more than that? No, I can't.
Yeah, it would be better if you wore some sort of pants if you're going to wear the Converse shoes.
Right, that would actually be more appropriate, I'd even say, than what they're wearing there with the new uniform.
Right.
It reminds me, this is another uniform thing that comes to mind from years ago. This was when the 49ers played the Cowboys in 2014. And this is when this was all new, with shoes being a problem. Michael Crabtree with the 49ers was wearing blue shoes against the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to have to find a picture of that sometime.
Right.
And bring that up again. It's like, do you want to just go play for the Cowboys, Crabtree? At that point, I was just about ready to give him away.
Yeah, we've never seen anything like that before. It was just shocking that you would wear your opponent's primary color the day you're playing them.
And I want to finish this first episode off with a good uniform, and in this case, helmet upgrade. And I want to thank Derek Carr for getting it right, because we've seen helmet after helmet after helmet get uglier and uglier and uglier. Now here's a player that went back to his original helmet. Look at that.
This was such a surprise. I saw it in the preseason and said he was using it in training camp and practice. I figured he was just trying it out again. He'd probably switch back to what I call the Dippin' Dots V-Cheese helmet again, as he had last year. But no, he stuck with this, back to his traditional helmet that he started his career with. And you can argue whatever you want about which helmets are safer, but this helmet looks better, and I can't be convinced of anything else. So to see him bring this back, smooth, sleek, round, nothing obstructing the logo on the side, nothing you can say that's critical of it. And we only hope that he will have success because of it.
And it's the Raiders. We got one of the best uniforms there, and it's good to have now, once again, one of the best looking quarterback helmets with the Raiders. And I'll say this each time we talk about the Raiders, they should be in Oakland.
Yes. Or Los Angeles at the least.
So that's our show, the Uniform Show, episode 1.